I'm Sonia. I live in Odessa, but now I'm in Kiev because it's not safe to be in Odessa. I live in Odessa in general, so it's my specialization, Odessa literature and Odessa cultural concepts, Odessa cultural myths. And I read about it, I write about it, and I live with it. Um, 2 years ago, I started studying of method writing in Kiev, and a couple of weeks ago, I finished my first book. It's a novel. It's a historical novel about Odessa, of course. It's a story of big, deep love in marriage and uh, dramatic historical times that was 100 years ago. So this book named The White Rabbits. It's a metaphor. And today I will read a little part of them. First of all, I want to tell that some words about plot. It's a story of a young woman that lived near Athens in Greece. She emigrated from Odessa in 1920, and now it's 1922. She's pregnant. She have a husband. She have a house. She have enterprise. But she have a sad story in her past, and she tell her story in letters to her friend, Nicola. So one more detail, she have my name. She have the same name as me. Her name is Sonia also. I will read a part of chapter that called The War. I think I can start, yes. The War. Dear Nicola, how did the war start? I mean, I know everything about Sarajevo, Serbia, and about Austro-Hungary, but do all those captures of Trebizond, Transkixins of Portugal, those allies and enemies, all those breakthroughs and traps put wise of anything at all? And hardly would they tell how it came down on us with all the great coats and furinals, while we could not imagine our white sugar rationed. My war started at our summer house on a heavenly quiet evening in July, when my mamma and I were waiting for Boris, and he came in, all agitated and preoccupied at the accent when the glance comes averted, and the brows were strained enough to meet each other. I was watching his face in the mirror, while he was standing with his back to me, washing his hands on the sink. "We declared war on Germany," he said, wiping his fingers with a towel. "They've read the manifesto today on the Nikolaevsky Boulevard." The crowd was something instant with the icons and flags, and the people were so inspired. "What shall we do, Borya?" I said. "Stay where you are and eat well," he said, and kissed my shoulder. "Impossible," said my mamma. "I'm coming with you tomorrow. My clerk is German, and my purchaser German. Terrible timing, that's all I could say." "Do you think it will be a real war, mamma?" I asked. "With Germans?" "Certainly, Sonечka," said my mamma. There was mobilization in Odessa, with a long queue stretching to the recruiting stations. I remember those men were eager to go to the war. They were standing and sitting on the pavement, covered in dust, passing from water to another. Those were reservists and volunteers, students in their withered caps, employees and hefty, well-built working men as they generally are in Ukraine. I could see the train station. It was humming, all covered in sand and heat, and the wagons were loaded, and women on the platforms were crying in the same manner, shoving bundles of food and blessing the backs of the men that were singing songs. The autumn of the 1914th brought us so many rumors that we almost didn't think like it's far in Odessa, that it's nothing like on front, along with the high prices, streets full of women and very few men, and the death of my mama's enterprise. The Bosphorus and Dardanelles were closed for us. Goods were rotting in the warehouses, and our hustlers were sitting numb and silent over Grecian Street, not heeding the women. They were getting poorer and poorer with every minute, rubbing their shaven chins and exchanging dark glances. We knew that two of them shot themselves that year, so much for it not feeling like war. One morning of my birthday, Boris said, "That's for you," and presented me with some sharp-smelling chrysanthemums and a pearl bracelet, taking the case from behind his back as was his custom. I put on the bracelet, thinking, thanks God, he's not in army or the navy, but he was a doctor, Nicola, and for the war it's all the same. In a week there was a sudden rumble in the night, and the windows answered with a thin glass tinkling. "No light," said Boris, getting up. "Seems like they're shielding us from the open sea." Then he came to the window, turned to face me, and said so distinctly that I instantly gave up every hope of his hurting. I volunteered. They need doctors. When a woman hears something like that, Nicola, she's howling with her mouth shut. When she breathes in, and that sounds like a giggle. And if she would even think of waiting an explanation, she would surely hear, "That's the war. I have my obligations." And she would go like, "And what about your obligations to me?" And he would go like, "Don't you understand me a bit?" And she'd say, "And you me?" And that can drag on to eternity, until the shouting starts, until the tears, and God forbid, until the slap. And the most desperate ones would go and ask to take them as nurses, to wash their urinals or wherever, just for the sake of being taken, but they won't be. I gave myself a very small liberty. When did you decide? No quarreling with the one who could never return. Long time ago. Didn't want to tell you. Was waiting until your birthday. Had no idea how to tell you, or what. They will take me as a doctor of the hospital train. They said a woman's doctor wouldn't be of use on the front, 'cause I'm hardly doing any surgeries. I stepped nearer to him in my nightgown, and we were talking quietly and incoherently, interrupting each other and with the sudden silences. And sometimes my replies was only a sigh in the name, a sigh in the name, until Katya called from behind doors, "Have you heard? The Turks shelled Odessa during the night." He could have left in 3 days, but the appointment delayed him. He was consulting for 10 hours in a row just to leave earlier, and I was visiting church to pray for Armistice to come earlier than he could complete all his appointments. When we were dining on our last evening, he suddenly reached for my wrist and smiled. "Wearing it?" he asked. "Wearing," I said. "When?" I asked. "Tomorrow," he answered.